Okay, so this is going to be the first video. We're going to talk about how to make this wheel. Same lesson we talked about in class. We're going to do a components with subcomponents on this one. And the reason why is because we're going to probably inevitably use 3 of these wheels, which means we'll use 3 sets of spacers and 3 sets of pins and everything else, and we don't want to have to redo the joints every single time. So we'll just do a component with some components as a part of it, and that allows us to modify everything as we need it to, but will not require us to add joints every time we copy and paste it as a new wheel on the other side of the car. So I'm going to use this as our basic origin point because everything, all these dimensions are pretty much based off of it, and go from there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start drawing all these circles. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I can start going from there. So if I do new component, I'm going to call this wheel assembly, and then within that, while it's activated, I'm going to right click again, new component, and I'm just going to put wheel for this part of it, and now that is the active component. I'm going to start building from there. So I will do sketch. I'm just going to do it on the front, and I'm going to start drawing those circles out. So from the outside in, it is a radius of 1.5, so 3 inches in diameter. No, didn't do it. So 3 inches in diameter. The next one is a radius of, what's the next one? 1.375, which is 1.75, or 2.75 in diameter, so 2.75. And that one I can put as a construction line. I'm going to start putting my dimensions on the outside just so that they don't get all convoluted, messed up in the middle. The next one on the inside is going to be R1.325, which is, what's 325 times 2 is 6.5, so 2.65. And again, that one is a construction line, and I'm going to put my dimension on the outside. The next one in that is radius of 1.125, which is a diameter of 2.25. And then from there, we can go in, and we will go, let's see, a diameter of 0.4. And then on the inside of that, our last one is 0.25. Let's get this on the outside. Again, I want to be able to see it later and change it. Because our dowels are going to be 0.25. So I'll make that easy. And just move this down, move this over. Then we'll grab this one and move it on the inside, just so that we're now pretty well organized. So the next part of it that I'm going to do is I'm going to do this a little bit at the top. This is what our rubber band is going to go inside of, and this is what's going to kind of hold it in there later as it wraps around so it can't come off. So what I want to do here, we can see we have a circle in the middle. It is lined up with the center point of the origin. And then these are not straight up and down. These are at an angle. They're 20 degrees. And so we will put a center line in here, make it vertical, and then we'll measure everything off of that. So I'm going to, it was on the outside, so I'm just going to put a circle on the outside here, wherever it kind of ended up being. And I can now put a line, construction line from the center all the way up to the top. It's vertical, and I can make sure that this is coincident with that line. So now I know that that's vertical. It's coincident with that circle, and then the measurement of that is 0.25 in diameter. So D for dimension, and then 0.25. From there, I know I have these 2 lines coming off of it. So what I'll simply do, oops, is go back. Come on. Let me. There we go. From here, and then I'm just going to go till it's tangent. And then from here until it's tangent. Doesn't really matter where that is right now. And I actually want to make these non-construction lines. So I'm going to go X and X. And I want these to be symmetrical across here. So I really only have to dimension one. So I'm going to go symmetry, click 1, 2, and then 3. And that should line them up. And then now you'll notice that they're still undefined because they don't have an angle or a distance. And what I want to do is it's 20 degrees across, or it's 10 degrees from the center. I'm just going to go 10 degrees from the center, just because it's easier. And then there we go. So now we have this part up here all sorted out. So the next thing we want to do is we want to look at these holes. So we have 12 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we have 3 of these. So the common denominator we can use is 4. So we'll pick these top 4. And then when we do a circular sketch pattern, we'll just repeat off of these 4 and do the entire thing at once. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all on the same line already, which makes it easy for me. So I'm going to go back. And for now, I can just kind of add these circles in place. Actually, will be easier to do them separately now that I think about it. So let's do these 3 first. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to go, so we're going to highlight, do S, and do circle for circular sketch pattern. We want this one that's kind of hollow on the inside because that means we're taking sketches instead of components. We go 1, 2, 3 for a center point. It's going to be the center point of our circle. 1, 2, 3. So I can see 1, 2, 3. And we're going to click OK. So now those are done. The next thing that we want to do is those 2 circles on the outside. So we're going to go circle this one here. We're still under construction for some reason. Circle here. And then circle here. We're going to make these equal. And then those were 0.4. No, they were 0.08. I don't know how I got 0.4. 0.08. And those are going to be symmetrical across this line. So we can just do symmetry for 1, 2, then our center line there. And then the last thing we want to do is distance. And the distance on those, if you look at the other sheet, is 0.5. So I'm going to say D for distance across here. And that's going to be 0.5. And I know they're going to be centered across here because they're symmetrical. So now, again, I can just do circular sketch pattern. And I will do S and then type in circle. There it is. I'm going to grab these 2, grab my center point, and I'm going to do 6. So I have 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have all 12 of my circles, and I'm good to go there. The last thing I want to do is these 3 circles right now. I know that they're on this line, and I know that they're the same diameter as these, and I know that they're offset on here. So if from this point to this point is 120, so from this point to the center of this, which this lines up with, is going to be 60. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go off the bottom instead, and then do a circular sketch pattern of 3 around it. So I will just do C for circle, line it up on the bottom. I can make this equal to this because they're all the same. I can just do a horizontal vertical from here to here. So then now I know that this is always going to be exactly on the bottom. And then I'm going to do my 3rd circular sketch pattern. So S and then CIR. Select my object, select my center point. I want 3 of them. Great. So now I'm good to go. I'm going to do the spokes on a separate sketch because there's just so much happening here. I don't want it to get really convoluted. So I'm going to do the spokes separately, and that way this is my kind of base stuff that I really, really need. Everything else is just aesthetics, and so I'll do that on a separate sketch. I'm going to do E for extrude, and I'm going to grab everything I need, which is just this outside, this inside, and I'm going to do 0.125, which is the thickness of the wood I'm using, and I'm going to press OK, and I'm good to go. So now I have my kind of basic wheel, and I'm in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to do this spoke pattern around it. And again, I want to do this as a separate sketch because it's really messy and busy, and there's going to be a lot of dimensions, and I don't want it to affect what I'm doing with the other one. And it's just easier for me visually to organize everything on a separate sketch. So within the same object, I'm going to create sketch. I'm going to put it on the face. I'm going to turn my old sketch on so I can see what pieces I need to project, and I want that inside line, and I want my center point, and say good, and then from there what I can do is I want this circle in the center, which isn't listed on here, but I can just go aesthetically, and we'll say this should be about 0.605. That looks great. Again, I'm going to bring my dimension off to the side so it doesn't get all messed up. I'm going to actually project this line from before just so that we can use the same one again, because everything will be consistent around it. And then I'm going to start kind of drawing these spokes out. So the first thing I'm going to do is just do 2 lines, one into the circle like this, and then one tangential to the circle. And then same thing on the other side, one into the circle, and again, it doesn't really matter. And then outside of that is going to be one tangential to the circle. So you can see I have kind of an X here, but it's not totally lined up. I'm going to make these 2 lines parallel, 1 and 2. And I'm going to make these 2 lines parallel, 1 and 2. And then what I want to do is, because I want them to be even, is I'm going to distance them. So I'm going to say D for distance, here to here, and I'm going to say like 0.0625. And then from here to here, I'm going to say that's going to be the same distance. So I'm just going to make that driven from here. And then I'm going to take these 2 inside lines, and I'm going to make them symmetrical across, which will help me kind of keep everything balanced. All right, so from here, we have our pieces. They're not really centered yet, but we kind of have them in place. I like to kind of make them a nice steep angle, so I'm going to say, let's drive these at, let's see, that's 91. So let's do like 95. Let's go a little bit over, and then we'll go from there. And now what I'm going to do is, again, just a circular sketch pattern around the center. So S, circle, 1, 2, 3, 4. My center point is going to be right here. And then for this, because it's just aesthetics, I'm just going to start kind of adding spokes until they look good. So it's 8, like 10, 11, 12, 15. I'm going to do 15. Everything else is divisible by 3 on here. So I think aesthetically, keeping it a number that will be divisible by 3 will look nice. So I'm going to say OK. And it's going to hopefully not freak out. And so now you see we have a lot going on, which is why I didn't want to put it on the same sketch as the other one. But now all we have to do is just an easy extrude. So I'm going to turn off dimensions and constraints just for a minute so I can kind of see what's going on a little bit easier. I'm going to press E for extrude, and I'm going to start just kind of grabbing pieces. I like to go from the outside in. I think it's just easier, but if you want to go top down or whatever, you can. But we're just kind of grabbing, nope, because that sketch is on. We're grabbing all these little pieces that we don't need. So this takes a minute. And then we're going to go on the inside. And then of course, when you do this, I chose to do like kind of spokes with like kind of old timey looking wheels. It's not necessary if you wanted to do like something a little bit more hip, or if you wanted to do something with circles, or whatever kind of shape or anything you want, you can kind of go nuts with it. Should be easy to do. All right, so now we have, I believe, everything selected. It sure looks like it. I'm going to click this so I can see the back, distance to object. I'm going to click on that rear plane so that it's going to cut through. Okay. And it's going to take 10 minutes to load, and if it doesn't explode, then we will have kind of the basis of our wheel done. So that will end the first video. The next video I'm going to do is the inside spacer, and then following is going to be the outside spacer. So thanks.